Hey everybody, welcome to Workforce Gaming. I am Brad, here to talk about Star Wars Outlaws, all the spoiler stuff for our interesting new Star Wars game. Our non-spoiler thoughts on this are in our review, which is also available. I'm going to run through everything, ending, spoilers, character moments, who's in it, who's not, all that stuff. So if you haven't played Star Wars Outlaws and you're going to, our review is there. You can get my full thoughts on it there. This is just what our feelings are on some of these spoiler moments without skirting around them as we would in our review. So what I'm going to do, we're going to start out talking about kind of the connections this has to the Star Wars universe at large. There's so many of them, for better or worse. We're going to talk about Kay. She's kind of the focal point of this whole deal, so we'll talk about her specifically a little bit. Walk through some of the best moments from the story, things that stuck out in my brain, and then talk about the ending, of course, at the end, and maybe where we go from here. So, full spoilers for everything, no looking back. So let's start with the connections that this has to other Star Wars media, because I feel like recently, especially, Star Wars has become just this thing, Marvel level of just referencing back. Oh, did you think of the thing? So there were a lot in this, and I think by like halfway through, I was just so drained of all of the references and all of the oh, but look, it's so-and-so's, that it felt like just so too much. So it almost kind of go in this in Star Wars chronological order was kind of, I couldn't remember exactly where every character was introduced. So Star Wars chronological order, the High Republic ship, I actually really like this. I didn't care for the level, but I like the inclusion here, especially just there's a couple data logs in it that talk about the Nail and the Starlight Beacon. I thought that was really cool. I'm good with the references that were kind of tucked away like that, where it was just you found that one data log. It told you a little bit about the High Republic. It's 2024. You got to force the High Republic into Star Wars media at this point. We go to the abandoned Clone Wars factory. We've seen it before. We've done that before. There is the mention of the Battle of Scarif, which I thought was, okay. Got an offhand tie in our Rebel One here. It genuinely felt like every piece of Star Wars movie, media, everything had at least one wink or a nod to it. So there's our Rogue One. Kira, obviously from Solo, a Star Wars story, plays a main role in this. I actually thought that her integration in the story was really, really good. It made sense, which I feel like some of these other later ones didn't. I feel like she really, really fit well into that kind of role of the head of Crimson Dawn. It makes sense at the time period. Everything about her being in here made sense, more so than some other ones. We got stuff going back to the original trilogy. Tatooine in general is just a big ball of references. I feel like at this point, that's all Tatooine serves its purpose in the Star Wars galaxy, is just like home. Here we go. We're going to Tatooine. Yeah, we'll show you Jabba. Yeah, we'll show you Mos Eisley. We'll show you it all. So just, I don't know, Tatooine just kind of felt like this constant slog of but look, it's Jabba. Ha ha ha. Remember this guy from Jabba's palace? Ha ha ha. We're going to Mos Eisley. Remember the cantina. And it just kind of diminished it. It was just kind of like, there were one or two moments on Tatooine that I really, really did like. I thought it was just kind of fun just walking up to Han in the Carbonite. That was just kind of a cool little fun, oh yeah, yep, here's our time period. There he is. He's just hanging out there. But did we really need to fight the Rancor? Cool chase scene. One of the more interesting boss-esque battles in this game. One of the few. But I don't really feel like we needed to, and Jabba's got his Rancor. It just felt like, okay, we got to walk through the steps of the original trilogy. The one I really did like is if you're exploring the open world, you can find the Lars homestead and kind of walk around in there. It's specifically, there's a data log in there that mentions the T-16 that Luke rode around in a Tatooine that's referenced when he's at the Death Star briefing. Kind of cool. You can drive right down the road to the Tashi station. Not much to do there, but again, it's just one of those cool little landmark things that, because we've never really had an open world Star Wars game like this, that we've never really got to experience. Sticking with our kind of original trilogy references, we get Lando to show up. Another one where, not quite as much as Kira, where it felt like, okay, that's natural. It felt a little forced. That of course, our Sabacc legend is going to be Lando. Also, the voice, very not Billy D. Williams in this, which kind of threw me off at first. He's fine. Again, it was by the point that Lando showed up in my game, depending on what order you went in the planets on, it just kind of was like, all right, enough already. I've seen so much stuff. I don't need one more of our original characters just showing up here just to show up here. Obviously, the big original trilogy character, we of course have to see Darth Vader. I love Darth Vader. I was him for Halloween as a kid. Every kid loved Darth Vader. Darth Vader was the shit back in the day. He is portrayed excellently in so many things, but he is in everything. It's just like, I get it. He's a key player here, but at no point did it feel like we needed Darth Vader being the ones that's pulling all these strings. It's just one of those things where it makes the Empire feel so small that it literally is just Palpatine, Vader. That's it. It has to be one of those two, especially when you have so many other characters that we've seen pop up in different medias that we know are around and different things. Like, there's this whole army apparatus, there's this whole government, and we keep coming back to Vader. I thought his one scene where he's smashing the room and everything, in case kind of seeing that, I was like, what the fuck? That was very well done, but just, it was almost more of a for me when he opened the door. Then I'm like, oh, Vader. It's just like, ugh, of course Vader's in on it. Just, it's too much Vader. I just need a break from it. Give me 5 years no Darth Vader, and then put him in a game like this, and I will lose my mind. Some other couple things from the sequel trilogy. We obviously got Canto Bight, which you start on. Love some of the casino scenes. Kajimi, which, not a fan of Rise of Skywalker, so it actually took me a minute until I realized, okay, this is the planet from there. That's cool. Took me a minute. ISB, I think, is just such a huge thing in Andor that it almost feels like that's kind of trying to tie in some of our Andor stuff, where it's like, oh, no, see the ISB, look how big of an operation they are. Like, they were involved in so much stuff. Like, it wasn't just an Andor. The ISB is a big deal. So, again, that's just a list of all the ones that I caught. I'm sure there's 10 other ones. I did read something that there's a scene where you can see Boba Fett kind of out of the corner of your eye on one thing. I didn't catch that, but it's so much. It's too much. It's just, I want Star Wars just to tell me the story. Kira, keep her in. Passing reference to Lando, I might even take. Jabba fits, but it felt so much like we had to go through those steps that it almost detracted from the game by the end, where it was just like I was just waiting for the next one, waiting for the next one, waiting for the next one. So to kind of move on here, Kay, outside of the Star Wars world, is kind of our focus here. I actually really liked Kay overall. I thought she was a very well-intentioned character in all of this. I think the way that they used her as kind of the every person in the Star Wars universe was very, very well done. Much better than what you see in a lot of other games, where it's like, Cal Kestis is our guy. He's our guy. We're following Cal Kestis. Where he goes, we go. And that's kind of just his story. This felt more like just somebody living in a world where it's not like we're trying to build up Kay, that she is this super badass outlaw that we should all know and should have been a major factor in everything. And she's just here. Her mom being in this felt very forced to me when she popped up. It was kind of one of those like, oh, gotcha moments, but it was just, I didn't quite have the disdain for her mom that I feel like I should have at that point. And I think part of it was that her mom joins the crew, but we don't actually see the scene of when she leaves Kay until after that. So I think that kind of detracted from that for me a little bit, because I think had you switched the order on that and you saw the scene where Kay's in the bar, she gets the hollow message and just like smashes it on the floor, and she's pissed and she's like, no, let me leave, but no, I need to stay. I think if you had that and you felt a little bit more of that before she showed up, I think that would have made that moment a little more impactful. Just, I could never quite tell how mad at her mom she was. She was very clearly had some disappointment, very clearly didn't want her there, but I never got the full sense of like hatred or disdain that it kind of felt like they were trying to go for. The other big relationship, obviously, with ND5, I thought that was really interesting. Just kind of how it goes from just kind of a whatever, just this droid here, to by the end, like, that is our goal. Our goal is nothing else. It's not money. It's not the death mark. It's none of this. It is, how do we save ND5 and how do we build this relationship? And with her crew in general, I just didn't feel the connection with the rest of the crew that I did with ND. She even tells Jalen at the end that this is what I want. I don't care about the money. I don't care about the rebels. Don't care about the Empire. I just want my crew. I want my crew to be good. I want my crew to be happy. I want my crew to be with me. And I thought that was a very good moment for her. I felt like that made sense for the direction of her character, her backstory, everything else that fit into who Kay should be, who Kay kind of evolves into through the course of this game. So to get to our story, I didn't care for the opening job. It just kind of felt like a paint by numbers, like, okay, like we have to get the lowly scoundrel into the big vault and she's got to make this attempt at it. And it didn't feel very unique. It didn't feel very Star Wars. It just kind of felt like how do we get the ball rolling? Okay, this is how we get the ball rolling. Like, we sit through this, and then we'll get to the good stuff. Then we'll get to the stuff that we actually want to see here and where we have more to say. I will say I liked the twist at the end of it where you got to rescue the rebel officer. I think looking back on it especially, it kind of starts showing that ISB connection, starts showing that Zarek Besh is really connected to the Empire really, really early on, that Why else would you be holding a rebel in this vault unless you were obviously having some issue with them, as they clearly were. I do think that that also was a good point to kind of introduce the time period where it's like, okay, no, like rebels are an issue, the Empire is a thing, like, and it kind of gave you that early sense of Kay not really being a part of it, just kind of being on the sidelines of the galactic conflict, but that is where we are. We get an early flashback that she was raised by her mom. The flashbacks, again, I think there were 3 of them, and it almost felt like they came at just weird spots. Like, oh, okay, Kay's been a thief since she was 10. Great. Cool. That's fine. We got that cutscene. It didn't really do much for me at the time. Again, you don't know the role that her mom's going to play later in the story, so it just kind of felt like a throwaway thing almost at this point, which I thought would have been served better to kind of move where the flashbacks came in here. Again, not going through every moment, but Waka is a character that I absolutely have complete hatred for, just the way that he shows up and is like, hey, I'm here to fix your ship. And then 3 hours later, he's double-crossing. You're like, no, this dude just shows up right after you have this massive bounty on your head, and you're just like, okay, yeah, help me out, hang out, let's do this. And then, of course, he double-crosses you. It felt telegraphed, it felt weird. It's one of those things where it's like, if I'm on the run, I'm not just going to take this random person who just happens to show up the second after I make this big thing, the second after I have this. It was kind of one of the early signs where like, okay, I don't quite know if the general story of this is all there. That, of course, when Jalen and ND5 come around, we get the go get your crew, and we got to go to the 3 worlds to recruit them, which very standard video game affair. The get your crew, collect them, bring them back together. Nothing wrong with that. Just kind of, again, there's our game. Just kind of that simple story line through. I went Kijimi, Akiva, Tatooine for my order here. Kijimi, I'm, again, not a Rise of Skywalker person. There could have been a whole bunch of references there. It just wasn't a movie I've watched more than a couple times. This is where you really start to see, I think, some of the group dynamics with the Ashiga clan and Crimson Dawn. I really didn't like the way the syndicates were handled. It felt so meaningless. It felt so much just like a meter. I never really had any desire connection. Early on, I was like, okay, like Kira's here. I'm gonna follow Crimson Dawn. Like, I'm going Crimson Dawn. Kira, I tend to think Solo is a better movie than a lot of other people do, so I'm gonna stick with that. I'm gonna stick with Crimson Dawn. And then you get so pulled back and forth with who you're working with, who you're working for, and you kind of got to do a little bit for everybody. And then the conflicts between them with the Ashiga clan, and it never really felt like it was going anywhere meaningful. It just kind of felt like we need some system with these guys in the background, and this is what we're going for. We need to have a little bit of it here, and you get it with the Ashiga clan. It just didn't do anything for me. Akiva, Lando being there again, kind of talked about it already, just was right about at the peak of my like, ooh, yay, Lando, before I started getting kind of smashed down with the references. And I think that is because I did this before Tatooine. I think after Tatooine, I would just been like, okay, and here's Lando. Great. Okay, moving on. We do get kind of some of our really early interactions with the rebels here when you find the crashed A-Wing. Very good fight. Enjoyed shooting those droids down. And I did think, again, it's very fun how dismissive of the rebels Kay is. She's like, I don't care what you all are doing here. I'm not here to help you. I'm here to find my guy. I'm just here to get my guy, and I'm here to leave. That's it. I don't care about your freedom. I don't care about your rebels. I don't care about the Empire. I don't care about all this. Just let me go. She's just very dismissive of all these people. Are like, no, we're fighting for our lives. And she's like, whatever, man. I don't care. Rarely do I feel like you see that in Star Wars, and pretty much never from a hero who very much kind of holds that opinion all the way through. I feel like, Han obviously has that towards the beginning, and then he's General Solo, a movie later. So very cool that I think Kay is kind of that dismissive thing and holds that the whole way through. Tatooine, like I said, it felt like just a big pile of references. It felt like that was the only purpose it served. It's Tatooine. We've seen it thousands of times. We've read about it thousands of times. It's just Tatooine. I did like that this is where I get Nix involved. I don't think I focused nearly enough on Nix as I should have, because I think Nix is kind of just a cool thing. His gameplay integration is very cool, but Nix gets taken. I like that then we get the flashback. I thought this one was the only one that was really positioned in the right spot, where it's like, okay, like, Nix get captured. Like, we've spent the whole game going like, oh, Nix. We've pet Nix. We've done the cool food thing with Nix. We've done all the things with Nix, and now Nix is taken. It's like, oh, that hurts. And then you get this scene of young Kay and Nix kind of bonding, and that really was like the driving force of, no, Nix is important. Like, let's go get Nix. Like, can't take Nix. And just, it was the one that felt like it was in the right spot. So then we kind of start getting close to endgame stuff. We get ND5 breaking down. We get Kay's mom showing up. We kind of learn about the ISB. I did really, really like the twist that Zarek Beth is just this ISB front, and it's their way to kind of back alley get information on the rebels. I thought that was played out very, very well. I never really saw that coming because it does feel like it kind of comes out of thin air, but looking back again, the rebel being in the vault, those things you kind of see it coming. So I did really like that twist that Zarek Beth is secretly an ISB organization. Slero is secretly an ISB director. It just, all of a sudden, it felt like it kind of raised the stakes for the last little bit because we know what those things are. Whereas before it was just crimes syndicates, like, oh, no, like ISB, like, if you know your Star Wars, you know that is like, ooh, watch out. The Veil double cross, again, she's kind of an interesting character, just kind of that one that just kind of bounces in and out. It almost doesn't feel like she's like crossing people just because I never really felt like I had a good handle as to where she fit into the story and who she really was, just because it feels like I'm here now. No, I'm not. Now I'm back. Now I'm with this person. Now I'm over here. And just, I never really got a feeling for where she was. I liked some of the escapes in this. The casino escape was really fun, shooting down those barriers. Very cool sequence. I feel like anytime I was running through a hangar into a ship, A+. Game did it great. Loved it. You get on the ship, Jalen, again, kind of more of a double cross. I feel like just everybody's kind of going back and forth with what they're actually doing here. Jalen really just wants the ISB info. That's the thing that he's trying to take over, control of Zarek Besh. I want this organization. I want this power. I want this. I don't care about the money. Other ones are taking, oh no, I want this information. I want this for the rebels. It's going to save the war in case. Just like, at this point, I need ND5. I want my crew. And this is, I think, part of where you start seeing K go, okay, ND5, my crew, these are the people that I want to be with. This is the important thing, not this thing, like whatever. You take Zarek Beth, you go hunt down the rebels. I don't care. I want my essentially family of these like 4 or 5 people that I've been working with. I want them with me. That's what I need at this point. So I kind of felt like that was kind of this good turn where Zarek Besh is no longer hunting you. It's the ISB. Jalen is no longer hiring for your job. He really is just trying to take over that group. So just a lot kind of happens in that moment. ND5 stuns K at the end. Just a lot of stuff that kind of triggers kind of the end game of like, okay, it now makes sense that K really just is like, how do I get me an ND5 and the pieces of my crew that are still with me out of this thing? And here's where we get the flashback to Rico leaving K. Again, I feel like this would have been much more powerful before she joined, because you've had some interaction, you've had some things with her up to this point, and now it's like, oh, no, here's why you don't like her. And it's like, well, I've heard Kay talk about I don't like her. Now it's like, okay, well, now we'll show you. I think you need to show me why we don't like Rico before you tell me. And it is this kind of this brutal scene of like, no, I think you're better off without me. No, I'm leaving because it's good for you, which I think is just a story that a lot of people can connect with. I think is something that's relatable for so many people, and it fits with why Kay would have the reaction she did when she came back. And I think just her smashing it, just showing that anger, showing that passion for it, seeing that before you start interacting with Rico, I think would have just made those scenes much more powerful. Again, going back to references, got to dress up as the Stormtrooper. Got to go do that. Jalen cuts the deal with Vader, that he gets Zarek Beth. Another weird one for me is that Slero and Jalen are brothers. Just kind of came out of nowhere. At one point earlier, he did mention all this family bullshit and like, oh yeah, like my family did this and we would have controlled all of Corellia. We would have done it and it would have been there. And it just felt like kind of this throwaway backstory on this character I didn't care about. And then just all of a sudden out of nowhere, it's like, oh no, we're brothers. Remember how my family was doing all this stuff and we mentioned it and da-da-da-da. And it's just like, okay, great. If that works for you guys, that works for you. Didn't do anything for me. We got obviously the deal of like, okay, you can take Zarek Besh now. Like, that's great. You have it. Vader doesn't care because I finally got some rebels. I finally got some information. And just, again, cool scene to watch, but just one of those thinking about it is like, okay, like, why are they brothers? Like, do we really need that? I don't know. Will say the ND5 chase scene where you're starting up the power generators is probably one of my favorite parts of this game. Just as much as I love Star Wars, I also am a big Lord of the Rings fan, and it's that perfect Gollum voice of like, I'm gonna shoot you, but like make some noise so like you can hide from me and do this, and I don't want to do this. You need to leave. I don't want to hurt you. It was really powerful because you could tell that at this point ND5 is like finally like, okay, like I can have some free will in this. Like I want to be with Kay. I want to help her. I want to work with her, but my programming can't. And Kay's, talking to him through it, fighting him through it with it. It just very, very cool scene. Very powerful, just the way that if you got caught, just he just like smashes you down just as he's like, no, no, no. It's one of those fun, just like twisted minds of like where droids are in a Star Wars universe that I thought was very interesting. So the ending, we got to go blow up the Star Destroyer. If you've played any Star Wars space simulator game, fighter game, arcade fighter, whatever, you know we got to shoot the little balls on the top of the Star Destroyer. We go and do it. I did think that it was interesting that the one piece where your syndicate level seemed to matter is who showed up. Kira showed up for mine. Like I said, at one point I was like, oh, I'm just going to max out Crimson Dawn. Kind of realized it didn't matter and gave up on that. But she shows up to help. I'm curious what the other ones would have done, but that was obviously the one I got. The ending itself, just, it's kind of fine. I don't even really know. Everybody's just kind of like, okay, we did it. Now let's go. Like, for the level of things that happened, I feel like we should have got more of explanation. Like, Vader's involved. The ISB is involved. ISB directors are getting shot. Like, people are cutting deals with Vader are getting shot. Like, Star Destroyers are getting destroyed. And it's literally just like, all right, we cool? We cool. And we're just kind of flying off. The last tag of Kay rescuing her mom, too, again, just... it fit with where Kay is at the end, where it's like, this is my crew, I want to rescue my crew, but at the same time, it's just like, it plays into the part of the relationship with the mom thing, where it's just, are we supposed to hate her, are we not supposed to not hate her, where are we at? It's complicated, obviously, and I get that, but it didn't do anything for me. It's like, why are we doing this? Why does this need to be happening? I get that maybe we feel like we need an end tag, but I just feel like there could have been so many more with like, what's up with Zarek Besh now? Where is Kay's level in terms of like wantedness? The death mark's gone, whatever, but like these people still know who she is. She's involved with all these people, and it's just like she rides off into the sunset and we gotta go rescue her mom, and her mom's locked up, and we go, I got you. So are we good with it? It just kind of didn't do anything to move this forward, or to tie it up in my mind. So just kind of on the whole ending overall. It just didn't really seem like we had an end point that we knew where the story was done. It was like, okay, Kay's death mark's gone. The couple guys who've been portrayed as villains are gone, but just, I think because the story was just so loose, and I think that's partially an open world thing where we're picking our own direction, it just never felt like there was enough tying up happening at the end. And I think you can leave things open-ended, but I genuinely came out of this just feeling like, okay, and was kind of my take on just the whole story. Just that's it? All right, cool. So I would love to see more Kay. I'd love to see where she goes. ND5 was great. Kay's great. I think there's some very cool things that you could do with this now that she's kind of set up in this position. These syndicates know who they are. There's some things with the Empire and the Rebels that we could play in a little bit with Kay. I definitely think there's some stuff here that we could see moving forward with these characters. I would want more of a cohesive package, I think, next time of, all right, give me a little bit more of a straight line of where Kay's going and what Kay's goal is, more than just, lose the death, get a crew, lose the death mark, ISB's involved, Vader's involved, all the players are here. Yeah, but you're fine. So I genuinely did enjoy my time with this game. I think I mentioned before, and I think almost in talking through all this, that if the Star Warsness wasn't there, I just don't think there's anything to talk about. You lose the Star Wars, I think you lose the interesting piece, you lose the conversation if you take that out. So I mentioned this in the review, I genuinely think this is a game that your level of Star Wars fandom will impact your thoughts on this game, more so than a lot of other pieces of connected media like this. I'm hoping for Outlaws 2, though. I'd play Outlaws 2. I'd be pretty excited to see more Kay. We are Workforce Gaming. You can subscribe to our channel, leave a comment below. There's a link to support us on Coffee as well. We'll see you later.